Bezo had the question how to place the drums and maybe also the kick and bass, so the whole groove, just the MIDI, you know, like not how to synthesize it, but where is everything placed and how does it relate to each other. And I think before we go into that, I want to answer a bit about track structure. I guess the most common, biggest building blocks we find in the structure is 16 bars. So every 16 bars, there happens something new. I mean, it can be before, it can be every 8 bars, but usually like every 16 bars, you have like a small break and then comes like another thing. And so that's an important thing you need to remember, because that will be something which will be later in our drum groove reflected. And then there's like smaller measurement units. I mean, of course, like you could say like a 16th note could be like the smallest thing we use maybe in melodies usually, but I would say like the smallest really logical unit we have in Psytrance music is a quarter note, because in dance music the kick drum is what actually dominates the most. So for example, we have beats per minute. What is a beat? A beat is actually whenever the kick drum hits. So if we have 145 beats per minute, then we have 145 kick drums hitting per minute. And one kick drum pattern is like a quarter note. I didn't say like the kick drum is a quarter note, but it repeats every quarter note the same thing. So let's look a little bit into that. So this is the kick and bass and groove I will show you. It's from my Samurai pack, which you find on BeatStars, or if you subscribe to my waiting list, you will also get like a special offer for that one. I will put the link both in the description below and up here. So that's what we are looking today at. And now we will start with the kick and bass. As mentioned, the MIDI for the kick is very simple. So we have here, if we look into that, and if I put this to quarter notes, then you can see that we have every quarter note, one quarter note, second quarter note, we have the same thing. So basically we could also just like loop this here and say this is like one quarter note, which is repeating here all the time. Just notice that if we would bring this to audio, then the kick drum usually just occupies this space. So you don't want to have it like the full length of the quarter note. It just repeats there, but the kick drum itself is shorter. It's just like occupying this space here. Then we have the bass, and I just put like a very simple machine gun bass here. And a machine gun bass is like a repeating bass. How you place this, basically this part, the second half of the kick overlaps with the first note of the bass. And that's why we also have this bass a little bit different. So it has like a lower volume, it has a little bit different processing, but that's not part of this tutorial here. But there isn't like an overlap between kick and bass. So that's, I would say, the basic, really basic foundation of a track. And of course you can have different bass lines. You could have like offbeat bass lines, which just occupy the second half here. You could have like melodic bass lines, which I will link to a video up here if I got one. many other options how this could happen. Just to mention, like usually if you have not like a machine gun bass line which repeats every quarter note, but if you have like a melodic bass line, then usually you repeat it like either like every 1 bar, every 2 bars, or every 4 bars. But it's not so usual that we have bass lines which are 8 bars or 16 bars long. That's something we don't do a lot. And usually if we have like 4 bar pattern, then it's also a little bit simplified. So we could have something like A, B, or A, B, A, C, or A, and then a B version of it. So then usually also not like A, B, C, D. So it's, the trick actually lies in the simplicity of the things. If you like this video, then please hit the like button, because that helps me to spread this video and also shows me that this video was helpful to you guys. One thing to mention with the kick, because even though I go later into the drums, I always see that the kick and the kick head, so there's like a little hi-hat just in front of the kick, which covers a little bit that zap, that laser thing of the kick. I always see them as one unit. So for example, if we listen to this one, yeah, and I could maybe make this louder, and as I brought here the MIDI version, so that's not the final one, I probably did also put this a little bit louder. Could be maybe something like this. Anyways, so this is like, it's happening in the same position because the MIDI triggers at the same position, but the kick head is maybe like that length or something like this. So if we quickly bring a kick, then we can actually see all those things which are like a little bit fuzzy in here. It comes from the kick head, and then you can see that it more or less stops here. So actually where that low end of the kick starts, the kick head stops. But I don't want to go too deep in here now. So that's it about the kick and the bass, and now we will look finally into the drum groove. So in the drum groove we have different elements which contribute to our drum groove. We have a crash. This makes like an impact on the start of each section. So that's why I actually mentioned before that we have sections of 16 bars, because we usually place the crash at the beginning of this 16 bars. And sometimes if you don't have many drums, so for example, like after an intro where you play the first time kick and bass, you usually don't have the crash. So the crash kind of appears together when the other drums become more prominent. Anyways, you can put a crash as well here in the middle. So you can have like at the beginning of the 16 bars, and then after 8 bars you can have another crash. But it's kind of like this one is the most important one, and this one is a little bit more optional and depends on the style of your track or what's happening, or if you have a change happening there. So there are many factors which can determine if you put like a second crash. I usually put them because it reinforces really that kind of like power smacking thing. Anyways, the crash length is very long. That's like a beginner mistake. A lot of people put it like this. And it's not about the MIDI, just to mention it. The MIDI here is just to display how long it can be. So I usually have it that it runs for a while. So if I solo this, you can see it even continues till here, so we could say like it's at least 3 to 4 bars long in tone. And as mentioned, this is not about the MIDI, this is about things like reverb or what sample you have chosen. So just to say, like when I drag the MIDI here in this video, it's more or less to just demonstrate things. If you aren't already subscribed to this channel, then please hit the subscribe button and the bell icon. That will increase the community here on this channel, makes it more interesting for me to make videos, and it will notify you whenever I make new videos, which will bring you forward in your own production. Then we have like an open hi-hat, and the open hi-hat repeats also every quarter note, and it's placed here. If we have this is like 1 quarter note, then it's placed in the middle here, so like after 1/8 note. So each of these sectors is like a 16th note. This is 1/8 note, this is a quarter note. We are in the middle here with our open hi-hat. And it really enforces that beat, especially if you hear with the snare later together. It makes a really nice play game in my opinion, which really makes it like one groove unit. And about the length, I would say you don't want to have it like full, or definitely not longer than this, but maybe here, somewhere in between here from the length of your sample. So either you choose a long sample or you make it longer by some processing. Anyways, it's not about the placement of the MIDI again. Then we have a snare. The snare plays with every second kick. So we have like 1 kick without snare and 1 kick with snare. And it sounds like this. And as mentioned, if you have it with the open hi-hat, it makes a nice game somehow. At least in my opinion, I always kind of like hear them a little bit together, especially, yeah, I mean, you never have like an open hi-hat and a snare playing just like this together. You have all the other groove, but then I guess those are the more prominent elements, and that's why I kind of like hear them more in a groove then. Then I have this battery here. It's like 3 closed hi-hats and a tambourine. Just to mention this is a little bit more flexible part, I would say. The goal of this part is to get like a fast shaking movement. So you could also use shakers. You don't need to use a tambourine. The idea of this is that you get like 2 things. The first thing is that you get that fast-paced rhythm, and the second thing is also that you kind of like deliver a wider frequency spectrum. And by wide, I don't mean like panning wide, I mean like that you cover more frequencies. And that's why, for example, I like to use the tambourine, because like it gives a lot of high frequencies in here. So that's usually a nice layer on top of that. Here, it's very simple. You only have 16th notes and you vary them a little bit in velocity. You just need to look what sounds good. So you could have like different starting points. You may want to start, as you can see, actually I have chosen a different starting point here. So you just try around what sounds good, where rhythm sounds good. But in the end, you basically have 16th notes and they're also not like full lengths. They may be like ending somewhere here or here so that I have like a small gap. To be honest, I don't really know exactly now how long I make them usually. And I have one which reinforces the open hi-hat position a bit. And I have here another layer, which is basically the same as here. But here I have a little bit longer pattern, I think. This pattern repeats here every half bar. So this is like 1 bar. And this pattern is like a little bit faster pattern, which repeats every quarter note. And the same here for the tambourine. It has also the placement of the closed hi-hat. So you just place 4 16th notes. You look what kind of like velocities sound good. And a good trick in general on drum grooves is it usually is better when it sounds faster. You might be asking what sounds faster, but you will realize after a while, if you start doing your drum grooves and you're listening, you will at some point decide, okay, this drum groove is faster than the other one. And that's the golden rule for me if something is good. So that's how they sound all together. And in solo. And that's how they sound now if we have all of those now together. And then we get like a faster groove because we have this ticky 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 in there, which really gives a lot of speed actually. Because a lot of people actually think the snare is what really is driving your groove, but the snare doesn't come so often. It's the elements which repeat very often, which give you the speed in the groove as well. And then I have like 1 or 2 top loops in the end. Top loop is basically just a sample where you have like different stuff going on. It could be bongos, it could be hi-hats as well. It could be shakers. I usually check like different sample packs or Loop Cloud and other services for that to find like really nice samples. For example, this one. And they just enhance the groove a little bit. About the placement here, I don't place them manually. I just take like a loop. Usually the loops are a little bit longer. So for example, if I have like a 4-bar loop, then I might reduce it to have it more repeating so that I just choose like a quarter note and half bar or 1 bar or maybe 2 bars of that pattern, and then I repeat that. And if I have something really ugly in here, which I don't think really fits the groove, then I just cut it out or just chop it together in a way I like, and that's like really easy. You just move this over, and then you have, for example, maybe you say like this is not cool, and you just move it over, and you have your new groove set up. So that's actually how easy it is to place the drums. The hard part is to select the right drums. And if you want to learn about all of this and how to make good kicks and bass and select the right samples for drums, I'm starting a new program. It's designed to make you jumpstart. So it's for the ambitious Psytrance producers who really want to get forward and get stuck and have watched like dozens and dozens of tutorials, because I have been at the same place and I was really frustrated and even close to quitting music because I got really bad feedback on my tracks, which I thought were insane by the time, but they weren't. They were really bad, and I learned so many things, and I really want to forward this to you guys. And I made my own program and will be live the first time. So if you want to join this, there's a waiting list, and I will put a link down here and up there where you can register and reserve your seat at the waiting list. And once I start a program, I will send out emails, and then you can decide if this program is something for you. But for now, just click the link, pause this video and enter your email address, and then I will send you further instructions how to take part in this program. And if you are interested in how to create your own kicks and basses, I have a playlist which you can watch next with a lot of tutorials on kick and bass, which you find here.